Spears' album, I Ain't Scared, in stores now. Best Buy, Sam Goodies, Tower Records. You can order by phone 818-322-5127. Some of the funniest stuff, the most uncensored stuff, pardon the pun, that you will honestly hear. And that's no sugarcoating, courtesy of Monday Night Man. That is the honest to goodness truth. One of the interesting things that obviously, I've known about you, is, believe it or not, back in 2001, you were in the movie Josie and the Pussycats. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you were Carson Daly's bodyguard. Now, I've got sort of two schools of thought on Carson Daly. Back when I was in high school, every high school guy wanted to be him because he got the ladies, he got the action, he got the tail. But it seems like right now, Carson Daly's doing his thing on NBC right now, and every once in a while I feel like slapping Carson Daly. I got to ask you, first things, point blank, what was it like mingling around with Carson Daly? And the fans want to know, how much tail does Carson Daly really get?
Well, one of my very first managers in the business told me never underestimate the power of television. And at that time, he told it to me. I had just joined Mad TV, and I kind of felt like, I'm doing, some decent work, and it just felt like nobody was responding. But it was my first year on the show, and anytime there's major change, people have to get used to you. So it was like when I joined Mad TV, they were going into its third season, but of course they had already built somewhat of an audience and a liking to Artie Lang and Orlando Jones and David Herman. So at first the audience didn't really feel us because we were the new kids. But, the power of television, as time went on, people not only got to accept us, but they got to really know us and know me not just by the guy on Mad TV, but by my first and last name, and started going, there's Aries Spears. So, again, the power of television is just phenomenal. And when given some time, people will respond to you. What else was part of your question?
Well, how much tail does Carson Daly get?
Oh, right. So I'm saying that to say that when people know you, it's almost like you don't even have to be that famous or that good, but once people know you, it's amazing how much tail comes out of the woodwork. And Carson is a very cool dude. I didn't just work with him on Josie and the Pussycats. I also actually did a show, Last Call. And if you get to know Carson personally, he's a cool guy, man. So I'm pretty sure he got a lot. I don't know if he's that happy about a lot of the tail that's been thrown his way, because TRL their fans are mostly made up of like R. Kelly type girls. So unless he's into the little girls, it might not have been the greatest thing in the world. And then he dated Tara Reid at one point, and they were supposed to get married. And if you want to talk about tail, okay, it depends on how you look at it. At that time, and maybe she still is, she was thought of more or less as the town drunk. So if you count that as a good piece of tail, so be it.
Oh, my Lord. Now, that's something that I'm glad that you did mention, because obviously our fans have been checking out our official MySpace page, myspace.com/Monday Night Mayhem, and we uploaded your, I probably got to say, one of the funniest damn things I've ever seen in my life, your impersonation of R. Kelly to the tune of The World's Greatest. And when the whole R. Kelly story broke down, it was plenty of feeder, I know, for not only Leno and Letterman and Conan, all the comedy guys, but that's what I really like about Mad TV and Saturday Night Live and programs like this, that you guys have the opportunity to just literally, no strings attached, just go to town. So how much creativity did you have on those R. Kelly skits? And obviously checking out your website, I know with some of the impersonations that you've done of Snoop Dogg and LL, that sometimes some of the guys have responded positively. Has there been any negative reaction, especially from that of R. Kelly?
I've never run into R. Kelly, so I can't give you an honest answer on that. Most people are cool. Most people have a real great sense of humor. I know Shaq is a big fan, and I'm friends with him, and anytime he sees me, he constantly always asks me to make fun of him like, he's never told it to me before. And Bobby Brown, I actually ran into at a nightclub, and long story short, I went up to him and said, hey, man, I grew up in the 80s. I watched you on SNL. Not SNL, I'm thinking Eddie Murphy. But I listened to your music growing up in junior high and high school, and I'm a big fan. And he kind of had like this really weird look on his face, like he just wanted to punch me in the face. And I even said to him, dude, you look like you want to hit me in the face. And he said, dude, if you weren't so funny, I would punch you in your face. But you're hilarious, and I love the stuff you do on me and Whitney. Just leave my baby alone, though, because she can't take it too much. But he thought it was hilarious.
Oh, once again, we are joined by Aries Spears right here along the Aries of the Monday Night Mayhem Radio Network. You can once again log on to Aries' official website, ariesspears.com. You can purchase one of his infamous and famous Arnold T-shirts. Features the Arnold quote straight from Aries' stand-up act. Get down, get to the chop.
The T-shirts aren't available anymore. I've already sold out of all those, and based on what it took to produce them and then sell them, it wasn't worth the headache anymore. So I'm just selling the comedy CDs now.
Well, also to throw in the fact now, Aries, correct me if I'm wrong, Homestead, Pennsylvania, Richmond, Virginia, Cleveland, Ohio, Tempe, Arizona, and Columbus, Ohio, between now and the end of the summer. If the fans want to have an opportunity to see where you're at, that's where you're going to be. Am I correct?
Yeah. If they go to my MySpace and check out my profile, the front of my profile, it lists all my tour dates.
Aries, my co-host Blade forwarded me some information before we went on the air, noting that I believe Snoop Dogg is going to be doing a reality show. Now, it seems that VH1, and I don't know if it's going to be on VH1 or MTV, but it seems that VH1 is just capitalizing off anyone who's a C-list or a D-list celebrity, including Scott Baio and Danny Bonaducci, for that matter, and they're giving them a reality show. This is one guy that I honestly think could have, a very successful reality show, several seasons. Now, in maybe to a certain extent in Snoop mode, let me ask you this. Aries as Snoop, what can we expect from a Snoop Dogg reality show this fall?
Well, you know what's happening. The Snoop deal, Double Gentle. I'm gonna just do what I do. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be a lot of realness. It's gonna be a lot of weed smoke. It's gonna be a lot of haziness. But if you can see through the smoke, you're gonna see through the reality. Because that's how Snoop get down, bitch.
Now, bringing it back to the president, Aries. Do you honestly think with all the junk that's on television, as I mentioned, Danny Bonaducci and Scott Baio, and hey, God bless them, there's a network willing to pay them. Do you honestly think that Snoop's reality show can quite possibly be one of the most successful ones of all time, based on how diverse his persona and his character is?
Yeah, because I think Snoop. It's funny, man. We actually had Snoop on Mad TV to do a skit based on one of the characters that I did that was really popular, called. The character's name was Dollar Bill Montgomery, but the name of the skit was Real MF Talk. And it was great, man, because for the first time, I had known Snoop for some time, and of course, Snoop, when he first started out, was what we call ghetto fabulous, ghetto famous. But, Snoop came out, and, he's at rock star status now. The way that people responded and the way the screams came out, it was just obvious that this guy has moved past just being a black celebrity. He's a universal celebrity. And, white people love him, old, grandmothers quote him, and I don't know if that's good or bad. That might be the end of an era in terms of hip-hop. That might be the sign for the beginning of the end. But nonetheless, Snoop is a really huge deal. He's Cheech and Chong rolled into one. So, I wish the cops would stop messing with him, because we got bigger issues out there than worrying about how much smoke is coming out of his car. Very true,
very true. And of course, part of your filmography, who could forget Hood of Horror, released last year. What was it like working with Snoop on a professional level outside of Mad TV?
I can't remember. I was high too much.
That's the response I was looking for, Aries. That's the response I was looking for. Wanted to head quickly into a couple of our questions from our emails and our MySpaces. Several years ago, you were featured in a very famous movie that I think maybe a couple 100 million people saw, named Jerry Maguire, and you played the role of Cuba Gooding Jr.'s brother. Now, truly a breakout role for yourself. How many people come up to you and say, "Show me the money," still 10 years later?
It still happens. It's almost like, Gary Coleman here, and we should talk about Willis. When you've done something that's that huge and it was that popular, it's hard to live it down. So it happens. Unfortunately, the business never showed me the money.
Oh, that's trust me. After 5.5 years of doing our program, Aries, I can say this. Every once in a while we get a nice payday per se, but great work sometimes goes unrewarded, and that's the sucky thing about the business, as we like to say. Another emailer, Steve from Denver, Colorado, wanted to know: was there any sort of a feud, whether it be on air or off the air, between Saturday Night Live and Mad TV? I know that obviously Saturday Night Live, it's an institution. It's been around 30 years. When Mad TV came about, it seemed it was the new upstart thing. Was there any sort of competitive juices flowing on air and off the air between both shows, or was it a matter of Mad TV did their own thing and Saturday Night Live did their own thing?
Yeah, when you're as big as like I know very much that Saturday Night Live was aware of who we were, because I ran into Will Ferrell at a car wash one time and told him that I was a huge fan, and he was like, man, you guys come on a half an hour before us, and a lot of times when we're in the makeup chair getting ready for our show, we actually have our TVs tuned into you guys to see what you're doing. So I think that spoke volumes, but at the same time, Saturday Night Live still is an institution, and it's like when you're that big, nothing really can threaten you. Mad TV will be lucky if it's around another season. Eventually I think I really believe it's on its last legs, and it may get canceled after next year. So as long of a run as it made, and I think it was the only sketch comedy show other than SNL that had seen that kind of longevity.